Hello everybody, and welcome back to Ethelor Plays Go. Today, I'll be starting a new series called Baduk Mindset. This is going to be a series where we don't look at necessarily specific board positions, but we talk about common topics that are important within the Go community and discussing them, kind of sharing my experience with you. I've been playing this game for a long time. I've been playing since 2012, so it's more than 10 years experience. I've had met multiple plateaus in that time, and I've been able to break some of them. So I hope that, although I'm not the strongest player around, that maybe I can give some useful advice. So when it comes to improving your play, there is some very, very common advice that you'll basically always hear. Just play more, or just do Tsumego, life and death problems. And of course, I recommend to do both those things. You have to play in order to improve, and life and death problems are one of the core ways in which you'll improve. And so if you're not doing either of them, then that's a good place to start. However, you might be doing those things, and those things might not necessarily be sufficient for you to improve your play. And so a lot of people will be playing lots of games, doing life and death problems, and still not necessarily progressing. So there's obviously something more to the story here. Let me talk about something a little bit different. Not necessarily Go related, but something that I think is relevant. For instance, when you're in therapy, seeing a psychiatrist for whatever ailments that you may have these days, lots of people are depressed, suffering from different personality disorders, all sorts of things. And one thing that you get asked quite a lot by different therapists is, how do you feel and what do you need right now? And those seem like very obvious questions because obviously we all know how we feel and somehow it should be relatively obvious what we might need. And yet these things are so obvious that we often don't think about them. We often don't necessarily know how we feel, especially if for instance, you suffer from different disorders. You might not be so good at introspecting like that, and you might need to be reminded. That's something that I, for instance, need to do, and then answer the question, "What do you need?" And then so too with your Go playing. What's the status of your play right now, and what do you need to work on? Those things might well be playing more and life and death problems, but those might not necessarily be the answer. Some other examples are in chess. There was recently a very popular video that was recommended to me from a YouTuber called Cameron, which I'll link. I think it's up here. Yeah. And she had a meteoric rise where she became a 2000 rated chess player. And from watching her video, one thing that I noticed that she's very good at is knowing where the deficiencies in her play are and addressing them. Likewise, there's another YouTuber called GoDave89, very popular on the Open Study Room community. He has his own YouTube channel. And one thing that he's famous for is his quote-unquote Dave base. That's quite interesting. What he does is he keeps track of the multiple mistakes that happen in his game, and over time, by accumulating certain kinds of mistakes, understands where his weaknesses are and does things to address them. Also, for instance, Inseong at the Yongsan Dojang, he will analyze your Go style and then through your game reviews, give you advice on how to change your style so that you can improve where you're deficient. So I hope you can see now that there is a theme here from many people who have improved or are very strong players, that the way how they do this is by analyzing their play, asking themselves, what do I need? Where are things right now? Where are things right now, and what do I need to work on? And so these I think especially the second part, how do I address the weaknesses that I have, can sometimes be a little bit tricky. And I think that maybe I will make another video explaining how you might do that more. For now, I just want to outline this is basically how it's done. And so you can see that sometimes people fall into false goals. Not necessarily just playing more, doing more life and death problems, but also playing fancy moves and strategies. If you ask yourself, what is my biggest issue with the game? Is your issue that you're not playing fancy enough moves? Often it is the case that we're missing things that are relatively fundamental and simple And so, for instance, you have books like Kageyama's Lessons in the Fundamentals of Go, or books to that nature. Not saying that it's always so simple to address your issues, but you can see how, for instance, like saying, "Oh, I need to play plans for moves, or I need to play different joseki," that might not necessarily get you where you need to go. Another issue is that people say, "Okay, I've done this to get to my rank." So, for instance, I remember I spent a couple years training with the Internet Go School, Gojuan's Internet Go School, and I remember I got very, very good at joseki, and I had a great knowledge of the game because I had done many of Gojuan's lectures, and I used the space repetition system that they use on their website quite a lot, and that gained me a couple stones. But then after a while, I stopped being able to improve. Um, and it took me a while to figure out why. And the basic reason why is because using space repetition systems, knowing joseki, that helps you build your knowledge of the game. And then eventually you need to do things that aren't necessarily your knowledge. Like you need to learn how to adapt your moves to the actual board, or you need to know how to read, have understanding of technical situations. And these were things that I lacked. Um, so uh, these are some ways in which I had my own learning plateaus because I wasn't able to assess what my game was like and what I actually needed. Um, so now the call to action. So what do we need to do to improve? As I mentioned, step back from your game and have a higher perspective. Maybe take the last 15 or 20 games, analyze them, and then try and figure out what you need to work on. Sometimes you'll also just know there are things that you're slacking on that you could do more. And those will be simple things to implement. Um, what you might also consider is implementing this kind of Dave-based system that GoDave has, although that might be tricky because that requires that you know how to find your own weaknesses, and that might already be tricky. If all else fails and you don't know how to get insight onto what you need to work on, then I recommend getting a teacher. If you're somebody who's relatively new to the game and your plan is to improve a lot, say you want to get from double digit Q to Dan level, then I definitely, if you're so long as you're invested in this game long term, I would definitely recommend getting a teacher of some sort. Obviously, your teacher, their strength will be relative to where you are at the game. So you might want, if you're really, really new, you might want to spend some time on your own for a little while. And then maybe you might want to start with somebody, getting reviews online. And then as that starts to teeter out, as you start to get to the upper end of what the Go community is doing, so maybe past 5Q, you start to, the number of players who are stronger than you starts to thin out a little bit. At that level, you might really want to start considering getting a teacher. So that's basically advice. I hope that's a little bit clear. And yeah, so I really look forward to making more of these Baduk Mindset videos. And I hope that I can share some of my experiences, and then you will all improve a lot faster than I did. Yeah, so thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoy this content, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.